Hey guys, my name's Jordan. Today we're going to be talking about the AI bubble. By the way, this is my opinion and this is not financial advice, and I'm not a financial advisor. Let's go. Right now there's over $820 billion of debt sitting off the books of the biggest tech companies in the world. Not on their balance sheets, not in their earning reports, just sitting there in the fine print as signed but not yet commenced data center leases. That's more than the GDP of most countries. And almost nobody talking about the AI boom is telling you this. By the end of this video, you're going to understand exactly why some of the smartest people in finance think we're standing inside the biggest bubble since the dot-com crash, and why the companies at the center of it look nothing like what you'd expect a bubble to look like. Here's the pitch you've probably heard 100 times. AI is different this time. Unlike the dot-com crash, these aren't pre-revenue startups burning venture capital and Super Bowl ads. These are Google, Microsoft, Meta, Amazon, the most profitable companies that have ever existed. And that's true. Google alone is guiding towards $91 to $93 billion in CapEx this year. Meta just upgraded their CapEx spending to $70 to $72 billion. By the way, CapEx is like AI spending. These numbers are almost incomprehensible. But here's the question. Nobody wants to ask out loud. What if being profitable doesn't matter if the money is just moving in a circle? And let me walk you through something that sounds boring, but it will change how you see every AI headline for the rest of the year. An AI company raises a few $1 billion from investors. What do they do with it? They spend it on cloud compute, renting GPUs from Microsoft, Google, Amazon. That spending shows up as revenue for these cloud companies. That revenue growth makes their stock price go up, which makes it easier for AI companies to raise more money, lend, borrow, etc., which they spend on. More compute from the same companies. It's a loop. Money going in a circle, dressed up to look like organic growth. This isn't a conspiracy theory. This is a structural pattern that respected analysts have flagged as eerily similar to vendor financing in the late stage of the dot-com bubble. The revenue is real. The growth on the paper is real. But is the underlying demand real? That's the trillion-dollar question. Let's talk numbers, because this is where it gets genuinely alarming for the current AI CapEx spending to earn just a 10% return, which is not even a great return. These companies collectively need to generate about $160 billion in new AI-specific profit, not revenue, profit. But 10% doesn't actually match what their stock valuations are pricing in. To justify those numbers, the bar roughly doubles to $320 billion in new annual AI profit. To put that in perspective, that's approaching the entire combined profit from everything, every product, every business line of 4 of the largest companies on earth. All of that just from AI, just to justify what investors are already paying today and right now. Multiple economic studies have found that despite years and hundreds of billions in spending, AI has yet to show up as a measurable bump in the US GDP growth. Here's the part that should really worry the companies spending hundreds of billions on this. While American labs are burning tens to hundreds of millions of dollars training a single frontier model, Chinese companies DeepSeek trained its V3 model for just about $5.6 million. Not a typo, millions, not hundreds of millions. And it's not a fluke. Chinese firms have found ways to cut inference, the actual cost of running these models, by up to 97%, using smarter architecture instead of just throwing more billion-dollar chips at the problem. Here's why that matters. American companies are actually switching DoorDash, Airbnb, Siemens, or adopting Chinese AI tools. A startup called Lindy moved 100% of its traffic away from a major US AI lab straight to a Chinese model and said performance went up, not down. Coinbase's CEO said publicly they cut their AI spending in half by shifting workloads to Chinese models. One AI platform CEO called it the elephant in the room. So think about what that actually means for the $1 trillion bet we just talked about. If a Chinese team can build something competitive for the cost of rounding error on Meta's data center budget, what actually are American companies paying $300 billion a year to defend? If you still think this is all just internet doom scrolling, let's talk about who else is quietly getting nervous. Warren Buffett, arguably the greatest investor alive, is sitting on the largest cash pile in Berkshire Hathaway's history, nearly $400 billion. That's more cash than the market value of all but 24 companies in the entire S&P 500. He's been a net seller of stocks for over the last 3 years straight. And at Berkshire's own annual meeting, Buffett said flat out, "We've never had people in a more gambling mood than right now." And then there's Michael Burry, the guy who correctly called the 2008 housing crash years before anyone believed him. In 2026, he disclosed that up to 80% of his portfolio is now bet against two of the biggest names in the AI trade, Nvidia and Palantir. Over $1 billion in put options betting their stock prices to fall. Is he right? So far it's mixed. His Palantir bet has paid off as the stock dropped sharply, while his Nvidia bet is still a bit underwater. But that's not really the point. The point is this. Two of the most legendary battle-tested investors of the last 50 is a bit drag for Michael, but around 20 to 15 years, 50 for like a big Warren, are independently doing the same thing right now, pulling back or actively betting against the hottest trade on the planet. That doesn't guarantee they're right, but it should at least make you pause before you assume everyone smart is all in. Now, I'd be doing you a disservice if I didn't push back on my own argument, because there's a real case here too. Unlike 1999, chip manufacturers say inventory is sold out 18 to 24 months in advance. That's real physical hardware, paid for in advance, not some vague promise of future clicks. And unlike the dot-com crash, these companies are mostly funding this out of their own cash flow, not debt or emergency stock funds. When Pets.com blew up in 2000, it was burning investor cash with no revenue in sight. That's not Microsoft's situation today. So no, I don't think this is identical to the 2000 crash. The businesses underneath this boom are real, profitable, and have actual paying customers. But here's the thing that matters more than whether AI is real or not. The question was never whether the technology is legitimate. It's whether the price already assumes a level of payoff that's unrealistic. You can believe completely in AI's future. I do. And still believe the stock prices today have already priced in a decade of perfect execution, zero setbacks, and profit margins that have never existed at this scale before. That's not a crash thesis. That's the math just doesn't add up thesis. And those are very different things, but only one of them is really being talked about on Twitter or Reddit at the moment. Look, I'm not telling you to short the Nasdaq or Nvidia or Palantir tomorrow. I'm telling you to just ask one question every time you see another $1 trillion AI headline. Is this money chasing real demand, or is it just chasing more money? If you found this video useful, please leave a like and subscribe. Thanks. Peace.